All right, this is going to be corroboration of Ed Fouche's claims about the equilateral black triangle craft that I personally saw it so close I could hit it with a rock, but I didn't dare take my eyes off it. And he says that there was research from 1965 on gravity cancellation using a superconductive mercury plasma. And then once the gravity is canceled, then you can use a hydrogen ion thruster. And the ion propulsion is now being released by NASA, stating we can get to the moon in 30 minutes with this new ion propulsion. We just have to scale it up. So the whole point is you get a relativistic speed, and so I've also been comparing this to the meditation, because essentially we have a coherent biophoton laser in our brains, so we're essentially doing the same thing as a plasma propulsion by turning the light around and focusing the laser back onto our pineal gland, and this shows the metamaterial of the microtubule and the tubulins, then converts it into heat. So I'm not just corroborating Ed Fouche, but I'm also comparing it with the quantum biology. And so here we have the key is to use the Lorentz force. So how this is interesting in meditation is that when you rotate the eyes around, then you'll feel a distinct increase in heat. And as my video yesterday talked about, the biophotons are activating the sympathetic nervous system connected to the pineal gland. So when you're rotating the eyes around, you're creating a Lorentz force, as this describes here. And that's what increases the plasma. The thrust is greatly increased by having that rotation as a pulsating rotation. And so this is also the alpha brainwave as the Schumann resonance that Puharich talks about with his psi plasma parapsychology model. So I've noticed that when the energy goes out of my pineal gland and out of my eyes, it pulsates at the Schumann resonance, which is also the alpha brainwaves. So this is showing how it works here. And so then I realized that they use iodine as the plasma, which made me realize you could also use potassium and sodium, which is exactly what I've detailed, that in the brain, like an electric eel. Qigong master John Chang, he says he's just like an electric eel, and if you take him literally, that's how the electric eel creates the charge, is from storing it up in the potassium as a differential. So when you increase your serotonin levels from the lower body up into the brain through the pineal gland or the pineal gland, then you the hypothalamus uses the ACTH to then increase the potassium ratio in the brain, and you can store up the charge that way and separate it out. So you're getting that proton thrust as a plasma internally, and that's what's creating the great heat for the tumo breathing that Wim Hof does. And just to prove it, they've recently realized how if you put a grape in a microwave, it turns out it will create a plasma. And sure enough, there's a video, I'll post a link to it, but essentially they've proven that because of the refractive index, so it's basically just like a metamaterial, and that's what the microtubule and the tubulin is. So you're increasing the frequency of the energy, and then it creates a plasma ion of the that's potassium and sodium, just like I have stated is happening inside the brain. So it doesn't even have to be a grape, but if you use a grape, they've proven it's it's the water that's being resonated by the microwaves, but I'm gonna have to try this out, with a stick of grape in the microwave. And you want to leave the skin. You can cut it in half and then have the skin attached, or you can just have two grapes and have them kind of touching, and that amplifies the. So essentially, when you're fully opening the third eye, what you're doing is you're ionizing, you're amplifying the very center of the pineal gland, so that it's, instead of being cooked from the outside in, it's being cooked from the inside out. Essentially, it's not. I mean, it's tapping into the non-local field that I'll go into here, because of the ionization is actually, it's not just relativistic, but it's also quantum. So this gets back to the claims of Ed Fouche, because he's talking about, in his talk, he says that his buddies in the military, when they flew these experimental planes, they saw plasma balls around the planes, and they thought the plasma was intelligently controlled. Well, it would make sense that if you're going that fast, that you're able to actually ionize the air around you and create a plasma ball. But then more specifically, he claims to have actually seen the mercury experiment of the plasma, where they did a superconducting mercury. So he said that this research went all the way back to 1965. So I just looked it up on Google Scholar, and sure enough, 1965 superconducting magnet facility for plasma physics research. And then right here, this is for NASA 1965, and the superconducting magnet. So you have corroboration right there that they were using, they were testing out mercury as a superconducting plasma in 1965. So then, let's see what else we got here. So that's more on this mercury. 1966, mercury vapor ionized and as a Klein effect. So that's where you get into this quantum gravity, essentially, because you're talking about Klein being the fifth dimension of space-time. 1966, symposium on, so this is the MHD power generation, which is now, again, this is the same thing as the ion thrust propulsion, plasma propulsion. So they already were testing this, just as Ed Fouche is claiming that once you cancel the gravity using the mercury superconducting plasma, then you can use, just as if you're in outer space, then you can use the ion thrust, because the ion thrust doesn't work unless there's no atmosphere, there's no gravity, so that's why they have to cancel the gravity first. So here we have another 1965 book on superconductivity and mentioning gravity. So that completely corroborates Ed Fouche's claim that this was already being researched. And so then here's another one on superconducting antennas, which is a related research, 1966-7. So, okay, so he mentioned this like quantum flux generator or something like that, and it's the way he says it, it sounds like he's just saying, woo-woo, like he's just making it up, like it's some science fiction movie. So I just searched it. I searched those exact terms into into Google Scholar, and sure enough, you find that the superconductivity is based on the flux quantum. So why is it a flux quantum generator? Well, they've proven that if you're using a plasma based on the Josephson junction, so they call it Josephson plasma because it's from a superconducting plasma, that you can get an amplification because you're pulsing it with the Lorentz force. So you're able to convert from the quantum non-locality energy, which is just a phase change, into the amplification as a electron or a proton plasma. And this is recent research where they're going to use that for quantum computing or whatever, quantum signaling. And so his whole point is that, well, the military is like decades ahead of the declassified, the public research. So here we have, and then I just happened to discover Stuart Hameroff's original source for the microtubule was way back in 1973, where he cites this this scientist Gel Atema, talking about, who first proposed this theory of the microtubule. Of course, he probably didn't realize it came up as an ion flux mechanism. So he already realized it was an ion flux, but he hadn't made the Roger Penrose connection that it was a metamaterial as quantum gravity. So this is like Hameroff and Penrose, they just took it to the next level. So what I've been doing is I've just been turning the light around in my brain by focusing it back in the pineal gland so I can create this plasma heat in my brain, which is where the Tummo effect is from. I can feel the heat. Like Wim Hof says, he can just do it with his brain. So I can do it. I can do the same thing. I just focus the light, the biophoton laser, back into the pineal gland. The metamaterial then creates a plasma from the non-local quantum source in the center of the pineal gland. And then the microtubules, it's with the amplified by the corpus callosum as the highest white matter in the brain, with the greatest myelin. So that's like the electric eel. It stores the charge in the fat, the lipids. So here we have, this is the quantum biology. This is Stuart Hameroff is in this book. So this is just going back to the spectral density function that Alon Khan's takes it to a whole nother level. So here they're just doing it as a spin boson model, whereas he's saying that, you have to get into the non-commutative source of the spectral density. So you have to take it as the non-commutative time frequency before it's converted into a commutative spectral density. And that's exactly what Pascual Jordan was originally claiming. So now we go all the way back to Pascual Jordan, who was one of the original founders of quantum physics. And he realized that Hamilton was using the non-commutative matrices, and then he was the first to develop it into the statistics that was for that Dirac also used, and then Fermi used it too. So it was like a relativistic quantum statistics. So it was called the Jordan-Dirac statistics. But Jordan, he didn't publish his article on it, so Fermi got the Nobel Prize for it, and that's why electrons are called fermions. And I didn't know that, but that, from the 1/2 spin. But again, this is before the Pauli exclusion principles, so you're resonating from non-commutative time frequency as a non-local, infinite time frequency non-commutative phase. As Alon Khan, that's his big point, is that the negative entropy of fusion energy of the sun as the gravitational entropy and also driving life is from the from the non-commutative phase. So it's not random. It's a discrete operator of time. And this was Pascual-Gordon's big claim, was that gravity is actually it's variable due to time. So he was creating a whole model of the universe based on a variable time as the origin of quantum gravity. And so here we have again verification that mercury is a superconductor. And then in 1961, they're talking about they already know about the ion or proton plasma propulsion. So this is a book on that that cites research from 1961 on flight control. So they know that this can be used for flight power. So all they need to do is to cancel out the gravity, and that's what they did with the mercury, superconducting mercury that they just corroborated. They were doing that research already. So here's, again, Pascual-Gordon. If you look at Joseph P. Farrell, he references the Nazi bell of Igor Witkowski, that the Nazis were researching mercury plasma to cancel out gravity. And so I didn't, at first it just didn't really make much sense to me. Like I didn't see, but this is the big point of Ed Fouche, is that it's not the propulsion, it's just the canceling of the gravity, and then the propulsion is the plasma. So you combine those two together. And like I said, I saw the craft up close. I saw the big red light in the center of it, and that's what's actually, and I heard the low humming noise, and he actually describes how, you can hear this low humming noise also. So Pascual-Jordan, he was an anti-Semite Nazi, and so he had terrible political views, and he tried to Wolfgang Pauli said he was rehabilitated, so he was able to be hired again, but then he got back into politics, and so then people just dismissed him. He was trying to claim the earth was expanding. I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, so here we got more on the mercury. This is just proving that Pascual-Gordon was related to this plasma research of the photons and electrons. That he was tying it into quantum gravity, and that's why, supposedly it wasn't picked up by the U.S., but it was, if you look into the Princeton, the DeWitt was interested in this, and then it got transferred to Martin Marietta Research. So that's all I'm going to say for now, and thanks.